They promised us a masterpiece. The trailers told us to expect a story that would change cinema forever. Audiences waited with hope, critics prepared their pens, and fans started counting down the days. HIM 2025 was set up to be the event of the year, but when the lights dimmed and the screen came alive, something went wrong. What should have been a triumph turned into one of the most painful flops of recent memory. And the question everyone keeps asking is simple: why did it fail so badly? To understand the collapse, we first need to understand what HIM 2025 actually was supposed to be. From the very beginning, it was pitched as a bold, game-changing film. A movie that wasn't just meant to entertain, but to define a new era of storytelling. The studio behind it poured millions into promotion, calling it a story for a generation. That phrase alone created massive expectations. The marketing leaned heavily into mystery. Trailers didn't give away much, only glimpses of surreal imagery, strange dialogue, and a central figure known simply as him. The audience was told that this character would be one of the most complex and unforgettable figures ever brought to the big screen. That was enough to light a fire of speculation online. Fans started analyzing every frame of teaser footage. Entire Reddit threads and YouTube breakdowns popped up, with theories ranging from deep psychological allegory to supernatural sci-fi epic. The buzz was real, and it was loud, but hype comes with a price. Every time the studio released a new clip or poster, expectations grew higher. By the time the release date was announced, HIM 2025 wasn't just a movie, it was an event. People expected it to be the next Inception, the next Joker, or even the next Parasite. Something that would make audiences think, cry, and debate for years. The pressure wasn't just external. Behind the scenes, the director was treated as a visionary. This was their most ambitious project yet, with full creative control. Interviews built them up as a genius who was about to change the way we watch movies. When you add in the studio's aggressive marketing push and the media headlines that called it the must-watch of 2025, you had the perfect storm. A film too big to fail, or at least, that's what it seemed like. On opening night, theaters filled with eager fans. Some even showed up in costumes inspired by the mysterious trailers. The atmosphere was electric. But the reaction as the credits rolled? Silence, confusion, whispers of disappointment spreading through the seats. People didn't get the story they thought they were promised. What was meant to be groundbreaking felt unfinished, strange, and even frustrating. Within 24 hours, the internet exploded. Social media feeds filled with complaints, memes mocking the movie, and hashtags calling it the biggest letdown of 2025. Critics posted early reviews, describing it as a film with ambition but no soul, a disaster of wasted potential, and, most brutally, a movie that thought it was smarter than it really was. Word of mouth spread quickly, and the dream of a generation-defining masterpiece started crumbling almost instantly. That's the tragedy of HIM 2025. It wasn't just a bad movie, it was a movie that had been built up to impossible heights. The studio promised the world, the director promised innovation, and the fans filled in the gaps with their wild theories. But when the final product arrived, none of it matched the hype. And that disconnect, the gap between what was sold and what was delivered, is where the downfall truly began. The hype for HIM 2025 was unlike anything we'd seen in recent years. From the very first teaser, the film was marketed as a cultural milestone, something people needed to see, not just another release to casually stream on a weekend. The trailers gave away almost nothing, and that mystery became the hook. Every shot felt carefully designed to spark conversation. A dark figure in a mirror, a whisper in a foreign language, a clock striking midnight. These fragments fueled speculation, and the internet ran with it. For months, the film's official accounts fanned the flames. They released cryptic one-liners. He's been waiting. The truth is near. Find him before it's too late. These vague promises turned the movie into a puzzle, and audiences love puzzles. Fans started posting breakdowns frame by frame, creating theories that went viral. Some believed HM as a psychological thriller about identity. Others claimed it was a secret sequel to a cult classic. A few even argued it was tied to a real-world conspiracy. The less the studio revealed, the more audiences invented their own meanings. And that was the first mistake. Expectations became bigger than anything the film could ever deliver. When opening night finally arrived, reality hit like a punch. Instead of a layered, mind-bending mystery, viewers found a story that felt disjointed and shallow. The character of him, who had been teased as a symbol of complexity, turned out to be underdeveloped and confusing. His motives were vague, his actions inconsistent, and instead of sparking debates, he left audiences scratching their heads. The marketing had promised a legendary figure, but what they got felt more like a half-written sketch, critics noticed immediately. Within hours of the premiere, headlines called the movie all style, no substance. Reviewers described the visuals as haunting but hollow. The surreal imagery that looked fascinating in trailers came across as pretentious when stretched into a 2-hour runtime. It was clear that the film's mystery had been built for advertising, not for storytelling. What worked as a 30-second teaser fell apart when asked to carry an entire narrative. Social media was even harsher. Disappointed fans turned their excitement into anger, and the memes started flowing faster than the box office numbers. Screenshots of awkward dialogue, GIFs of confusing scenes, and sarcastic posts about finding him spread everywhere. What was supposed to be the movie's greatest strength, its mystery, became its biggest weakness. Viewers who felt tricked by the marketing campaign began mocking the very things that had once excited them, but it wasn't just about bad reviews. The deeper problem was the emotional disconnect. Great films give audiences something to hold on to, a hero to root for, a theme that resonates, or even just a moment that sticks in the heart. HM 2025 gave none of that. Instead of walking out of the theater discussing hidden meanings or emotional payoffs, audiences walked out wondering what they had just watched, and why they had paid for it. The box office reflected this sharp drop in trust. After a strong opening fueled purely by hype, ticket sales plummeted within days. Word of mouth turned toxic, and the mystery that once felt exciting now felt like a scam. What was marketed as a story for a generation ended up as a cautionary tale about the dangers of overhyping and under-delivering. Looking back, it's clear that the hype machine was both the film's biggest weapon and its deadliest trap. It promised greatness without ever proving it, building a mountain of expectations so high that the actual movie didn't even come close. And when reality hit, it didn't just fall short, it collapsed under the weight of its own marketing. This is where the downfall of HM 2025 becomes almost tragic. The world wanted to believe. The world was ready for a masterpiece. But the gap between promise and reality was too wide to bridge. And once that trust was broken, no amount of clever visuals or cryptic quotes could save it, because in cinema, as in life, mystery is only powerful if the truth is worth the wait. And for HM 2025, the truth wasn't just disappointing, it was forgettable. At the heart of HM 2025's downfall were the failures that went far deeper than just bad marketing. Hype can draw crowds to the theater, but only the film itself can keep them seated in awe. The truth is, once the smoke of anticipation cleared, what lay beneath was a series of missteps that turned a potential classic into a cautionary tale. The first and most damaging failure was the story itself. From the opening scene, audiences could sense something was off. The narrative, which had been teased as complex and layered, instead felt scattered and incomplete. Scenes bled into each other without purpose, and the central mystery of him was left hanging in fragments. Viewers weren't led on a thrilling journey of discovery, they were left in the dark, not because the story was clever, but because it was clumsy. What could have been a gripping psychological exploration ended up as a confusing string of unfinished ideas, and then there were the characters. For a movie that hung its identity on the promise of one unforgettable figure, the execution was shockingly hollow. Him was painted as a figure of myth and menace, someone audiences would never forget. But when the mask came off figuratively and literally, there was nothing beneath it. No depth, no arc, no emotional anchor. The character existed as an idea rather than a person, and audiences don't connect to ideas. They connect to stories. Without a protagonist to hold on to or an antagonist to fear, the film floated without gravity. Next came the issue of direction and pacing. The director had been praised as a visionary before release, but in execution that vision felt indulgent. Shots lingered too long without payoff. Dialogue stretched into silence. Entire sequences existed for the sake of style rather than substance. It gave the illusion of depth without actually delivering it, as though the film was desperate to look intelligent instead of simply being intelligent. Viewers felt tricked, as though they were watching an unfinished experiment rather than a polished story behind the scenes. Reports only added to the chaos. Studio interference painted a picture of a production that didn't know what it wanted to be. Some claimed the director fought to keep the story ambiguous, while others said the studio pushed for spectacle over substance. The result was a film that tried to serve two masters and ended up pleasing none, but perhaps the most damaging failure was the disconnect with the audience. The film seemed to underestimate what viewers actually wanted. In chasing mystery and symbolism, it forgot about something more important: clarity and emotion. Audiences can handle ambiguity, but only when there's a core of meaning beneath it. In HIM 2025, the ambiguity felt empty, as if the filmmakers believed confusion was the same as depth. Instead of sparking debates, the movie sparked frustration. Critically, this disconnect spilled over into the numbers. Box office projections were crushed within the first week. What was meant to be a long, steady run fueled by discussion quickly collapsed as word of mouth spread like wildfire. Even loyal fans who had defended the film at first eventually admitted that their excitement had blinded them to its flaws. The film's Rotten Tomatoes score plummeted. Review compilations labeled it one of the year's biggest disappointments. It's worth noting that not everything was a failure. The visuals had moments of brilliance, certain scenes were genuinely striking, and the soundtrack carried weight. But in cinema, beauty without substance is like a painting with no story. It may capture attention for a moment, but it doesn't last. Audiences don't remember how a movie looked. They remember how it made them feel. And HIM 2025 left most people feeling nothing at all. In the end, the failures of him weren't just technical, they were philosophical. The film mistook mystery for meaning, style for story, and hype for substance. And when those illusions shattered, all that remained was a hollow shell of what could have been. That is why HIM 2025 didn't just fail at the box office, it failed at the very core of what makes a film resonate. It failed to tell a story worth remembering. When the dust finally settled, HIM 2025 wasn't remembered as the masterpiece it promised to be. Instead, it became a cautionary tale, whispered across the industry as a reminder of how quickly glory can turn to disaster. But from failure comes clarity, and the lessons left behind are too important to ignore. The first lesson is about expectations. A movie should never promise more than it can deliver. Him was sold as a revolution, a once-in-a-generation story that would leave audiences speechless. But cinema doesn't work like that. Audiences don't connect to hype. They connect to truth, to emotion, to characters who feel real. Once a film sets itself up as the next big thing, it builds a mountain it may never climb. And when the story can't reach the summit, the fall is twice as painful. The second lesson is about the balance between mystery and meaning. Ambiguity can be powerful. It invites audiences to think, to discuss, to interpret. But ambiguity without purpose is nothing more than confusion. HIM 2025 mistook mystery for storytelling, drowning its viewers in unanswered questions while forgetting to give them reasons to care. Great films leave doors open but still give audiences a path to walk. Him left them standing in the dark, holding nothing but broken promises. The third lesson lies in respecting the audience. Modern viewers are sharper than studios often believe. They can smell when a story is shallow, when style is being used as a disguise for emptiness. HIM underestimated that intelligence, assuming cryptic trailers and dramatic visuals, would be enough. It wasn't. Audiences don't just want to be dazzled, they want to be moved. And when they feel tricked, they turn their disappointment into anger. That anger spreads faster than any advertisement. And yet perhaps the most haunting lesson is this: failure leaves scars. The collapse of HIM 2025 didn't just hurt the studio's profits. It hurt trust. Fans who once believed in the director's vision now see their name as a warning sign. Investors who thought they were funding the next cultural phenomenon will hesitate the next time a project claims to be revolutionary. Even actors who once proudly promoted the film now distance themselves, careful not to be defined by its shadow. But failure is not the end, it is a mirror. For filmmakers, the tragedy of HIM is also an opportunity to learn. To focus on crafting stories that matter instead of chasing trends. To remember that hype may sell opening night tickets, but only authenticity sustains a legacy. To understand that audiences crave connection, not confusion. If these lessons are taken seriously, then maybe, just maybe, the failure of HIM 2025 won't be wasted. For the audience, the aftermath is different. HIM became a symbol of broken promises. People reference it not as a work of art, but as a meme, a cultural joke, shorthand for movies that collapse under their own ambition. And yet, that ridicule carries weight. It keeps studios accountable. It reminds them that they cannot simply hide weak storytelling behind smoke and mirrors. In the end, 2025 didn't fail because it aimed high. It failed because it aimed high without building the foundation to support the climb. It reached for greatness without securing the basics: story, character, emotion. And in cinema, without those, nothing else matters. So what remains of HIM now? Not the masterpiece it was meant to be. Not the cultural shift it promised. What remains is a lesson carved into the history of film. Hype can light the fire, but only truth can keep it burning, and that is why HIM 2025 will forever be remembered not for what it achieved, but for how completely it collapsed.